Welcome to Renegade Thinkers Unite, a show that will help you transform your marketing from mere messaging to programs that break the rules and make a difference. Join the movement today and learn non-traditional techniques that give you an edge. Now, here's your Chief Marketing Renegade, Drew Nizer.
My guest today is Eric Reynolds, Chief Marketing Officer of the Clorox Company. He's the winner of the CMO's Marketing Innovation Award, and today we're going to talk a lot about marketing innovation. Welcome, Eric.
Welcome, Drew. Thank you, Drew.
Hey, well, I'm welcome too.
We're both feeling welcome this morning, and
exactly. We've
right.
overcome all sorts of technology challenges just to be able to talk about marketing innovation. And so I have this theory that now it could be a little self-serving, but I have this theory that there's at least a little renegade in every CMO. What's one way that you're a renegade?
Well, I'd agree with your belief, Drew. A couple years ago, I aired a piece of film on TV without ASI testing it. That was pretty crazy. No, I would say it's packaged goods, Drew. So the bar for renegade is pretty low. But seriously, I think for me, it's tolerating a lot more chaos and ambiguity in the culture and the way we work in order to get to the good stuff, to tackle those modern marketing challenges. That's probably the thing you have to get comfortable with in a large corporation is things are just going to be they're going to be more dynamic, they're going to be less controlled, they're going to be more fluid. And in my culture, that can be seen as a bit of a renegade.
That's tolerating chaos. What a great way to put it. And it's funny, people don't think of that in a large corporation. They think that's just for startups. So I'm curious, as Clorox certainly has the resources and has taken advantage of all the traditional media channels over the years. Is there one non-traditional technique that you're seeing right now that's been particularly successful for any of your brands?
Well, like a large house of brands, Drew. We employ lots of different marketing, ways and approaches. I would say, our work in the influencer space and some of our key brands, I'm incredibly proud of, because it really marries, people who are trusted in an area with the things we're passionate about in the brand. If you look at Brita or you look at Burt's Bees, these are equities. A lot of the credibility and information comes through thought leaders that are very discerning, and we leverage them, and then hopefully, they give us a clear-eyed, assessment what they think about our ideas and our products. And every time we put more money and attention to this space, the wonderful product truths, the things we obsess about, we sweat over, come through. Broadly content maybe, but really talking to people who are influential and convincing them in their heart that what we're onto is the right path. That's something we've been particularly proud of.
And I think that's such an interesting area and one I'd love to talk to you in more detail about. I have some personal experience with influencer marketing. I'm part of IBM's Futurist team, and I've watched how they've managed the program. And so it's been fascinating to me to watch how influencer marketing has become more of a professional discipline as opposed to the Wild West show that it seemed to have been a few years ago. What are you finding in terms of both identifying influencers and then making those relationships work? What's the key to that?
Well, I think the first thing starts in terms of not so much the business objective, but the brand objective, the human question that the brand is trying to get across. And often, it really starts with a larger question and figuring out who are the communities around that human question that are curious and interested and have something to say. It's not just looking for the people with the most attention or have the highest share of voice, but people who really think about our products or ideas that we're trying to say. I think that really starts there. And rather senior people are managing this now, Drew. It's something we're reluctant to delegate down. Our brand and marketing communications craftspeople, if you will, they spend a lot of time talking about what's the right, fit with what type of community, how might this community or these influencers respond to certain types of ideas. So we're very reluctant we're very confident in sort of finding people, but then we want to give them the freedom to respond and engage with it authentically we don't want to lead them down a road into some narrow messaging points. We want them to really engage and think about it, and then help shape the proposition or the communication or the product attributes, what have you. But, I mean, it really starts there.
Yes, and you said a couple of really key things, I think, and one, and I wonder if you could talk about, first of all, the one point you made about senior people, I think, is so important because there's such a tendency to sort of think of everything as the twin turn, the Twitter user who's the intern. Oh, just, have them look to see. And I found there's a woman who runs influencer programs for Dell, and she's an extremely seasoned marketer, and she treats these folks like they were, reporters for the New York Times. I mean, they really get the really great white glove treatment, if you will. So I think that in itself is a big insight. Let's talk about influencers when it comes to actual identifying what that means. A lot of folks 60 Minutes did a program on influencer, and they talked about Kim Kardashian and, with her 1 million followers as a market mover. Most brands, though, I think have found success with influencers on a very niche basis. When it comes to the sort of mass versus focus, where's your success been found?
Well, unquestionably, our bias is for that niche. Right? We don't want influencer to be sort of it shouldn't be we don't believe it's best when it's used as like a broad scale, like taking up a very large person in culture and sort of like glom onto them. Well, for example, we have a very, very proud relationship with Steph Curry and our Brita business, but we wouldn't necessarily say his purpose there is to be an influencer. There's a lot of reasons we have a relationship with him. But we do go niche. If it's a very specific type of cosmetic, we're looking for a very specific type of makeup artist on Burt's Bees. Or if it's a Kingsford person, we're looking for a very particular type of person involved in barbecue. And we're trying to understand, we're trying to learn. It's a two-way, if it's best, it's a sort of a two-way dialogue. But, again, you could do experts, you could do celebrities, you could do athletes and thought leaders. I think we tend to go for the thought leader side or the expert side, to fill in the little gaps on our brand. Not gaps so much, but little opportunities, because that brings the texture and the realness to it that, we rely on in this type of marketing.
And then, but, we're talking about mass brands here, Kingsford and Brita, and how do you scale an influencer program, or do you not bother?
Typically, we don't approach the question like that, Drew. We don't say, okay, how could you scale the influencer program? I mean, it has a different role in the chorus of things we're deploying. Now, an idea we learn from an influencer or something that inspires us, we may cultivate into other kinds of apertures or ways of connecting. But we don't go in, let's go find an influencer and then bring it to scale. We have other ways of telling those broad stories, and that's worked really well for us.
All right, we've talked a little bit about influencers, and it's really hard. I know that lots of marketers struggle to get their messages out there, to stand out, not just from the competition, but just in the world of all the noise that's out there. What's one thing that you do to make sure that the marketing for each of your brands cuts through?
Well, as you can imagine, as a house of brands, it's really going to depend. But I would say it really starts with a clear sense of who we are as a brand, what we're trying to do, in terms of our product experiences and our ideas. Nothing ever gets better, Drew, until you're really clear with yourself about what your brand stands for, why it even exists. I mean, at the idea level. There's a lot of talk about brand purpose today, and we're in that camp. But as a process to define and crystallize what matters, wow, that's really essential. So then, when there's a moment in culture, there's a moment in content where we can be invited in naturally into the discussion. We don't have to imagine, okay, what moment should our brand be a part of? So to break through, we want great, vibrant stories. There's a lot of talk about storytelling. We're going to reinvent storytelling in different formats, of course. But if you want it to break through, you've got to find something in the content world, in the culture world, that our brand fits into naturally, and then at some level is talkable and shareable. More and more, I mean, there is good one-directional messaging out there that has its role, but for our brands and our categories, which tend to be on the medium-sized side of things, we find that unless you get that holy trinity of the brand story, the message, and that content, it's the work is noticed, but it's not talked about. They're not ideas that live forever, or at least live for a while that people play with in social and in culture. But that's how we find we're most successful, because we're working on this too when all those things come together.
It's a great and inspiring place to stop this portion of it. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about sort of what state-of-the-art marketing is, and I suspect it might depend on brand, but we'll find out when we come back.
Renegade Thinkers Unite is brought to you by Social Media Explorer, the website that explores the world of social media from the inside out. Great advice from today's leading social media columnists and experts at socialmediaexplorer.com. That's socialmediaexplorer.com.
Okay, we're back with Eric Reynolds, the CMO of Clorox. Eric, can you give us an example of what you consider state-of-the-art in marketing today?
From a state-of-the-art perspective, there's a lot of talk about what is modern marketing. And, we come from a very clear perspective. We're working hard in this direction, Drew, that, state-of-the-art means an exceptionally strong commitment to brand fundamentals, and then harnessing all the amazing data and technology as a means to an end to sort of have that work in the background to bring it to people in this really seamless way. So it's both. It's a really clear, grounding in the brand, but also, and behind the scenes, all the data and technology hopefully disappears. That's what we'd say. And, I think some of the best state-of-the-art marketing right now, modern marketing is going on, and we talked about it earlier, but it's such a great example is Burt's Bees. Here's a brand we're exceptionally proud of. It's been around 30 years. We've had it in our care for about 10. And that brand has been entirely built on a tremendous commitment from its founders, a culture that has been transmitted to every generation. We built it on PR and social, people sharing in social events. So people see that story and they can't help but be motivated by it. And we love to tell the story of Burt, but we also love to tell the product stories. And to do that, we harness a remarkable amount of data and technology in the background that's almost invisible. Our lip balm business, which we're probably best known for, it's a highly competitive category. We think we have a terrific brand and product. And now today, we do automated media buying based on 80 different weather districts around the country when their weather conditions change, link to consumption of lip balm, and we automatically place media in each of those 80 districts. So that a person, when it's getting a little humid or the wind is blowing from the north versus the south, all of a sudden it automatically triggers a media purchase. So they're like, yeah, I'm thinking about lip balm. And it comes at a time that feels natural and appropriate to them, not in an artificial way or a weird time of the year or place when that seems totally irrelevant. So I think what makes it very sophisticated modern marketing is we still love the story. We're still honest to the values. We lift that up, but at the same time, we're harnessing tons of first-party data that we get through our burtsbees.com site, second-party data, sometimes retailer data, and it's all happening silently in the background so that we create these little moments for people when they can think about the brand. I think that is the very picture of sort of sophisticated modern marketing.
Yeah,
and we want every brand to do that. So.
It sounds
I get really passionate about it, as you can tell. I'm so proud of the team.
I bet. And what you're describing sounds a lot like what IBM is talking about with, of course, why they bought Watson, and why they bought the Weather Channel, to be able to combine weather data and so forth. Now, if I'm not Clorox, I'm a smaller brand with a smaller budget.
Yep.
Is this kind of programmatic marketing still available? Because this is sort of a combination of programmatic and then I guess I'm not sure where the weather data is fitting in unless you're partnering with a Weather Channel. or you're working with somebody with weather data. Is this essentially programmatic?
A big piece is inspired by it. We do programmatic as a piece of it, yeah. But I would tell you the thing that keeps me up at night, Drew, is the fact is I do believe small brands and smaller companies can do this. That's actually my biggest fear. We're going to compete, Drew, against, the big multinational companies, of course. But with a little bit of technology and some good partnerships, you can approach a lot of what I just talked about. And they can probably do it at a speed and a sense of adventure that we're still trying to approach. So I would say, yeah, you can get a lot of those key programmatic pieces. You can have tremendous storytelling. Not at any budget. You have to have some size budget, but look at competitors in our space. Look at the success of The Honest Company. We do compete against them, but we do have a lot of respect for the way they're digitally slipping into people's lives. And I'm sure that's a very small, inspired team of really smart folks. And they probably don't have the budgets approaching Clorox's, and they're doing it. And we have other examples of people doing it. So I think this is digital and technology. And now with the level of sophistication, Drew, and people like IBM and other partners, Facebook and Google and Oracle, name them all, it's really democratized our ability to get intimate with the consumer. You just need smart people working on tough problems.
And is this the kind of thing that a smaller company, this expertise is something that they should try to do in-house?
That's hard to say. I would say probably not. I think placing a bet, I think it's hard if you're a smaller organization to know where to place your bets. I think what you want to keep in-house is the brand strategist, people have a clear sense of where the brand is going, both on its brand experience and its product experience. And then stay nimble, stay in the balls of your feet while you try to figure out what partners and technologies you think you might want to harness to bring it to life. Now, you're going to stumble and you're going to make a few mistakes in this space. I don't know if you know, Drew, but everyone promises everything but doesn't always deliver. But I think through time and interaction, you'll begin to, smart people will figure out, where the value lies. And that'll keep your options open and until you really feel like you're ready to place a bet. Again, I'm really impressed with the MarTech and AdTech community for really starting to mature and offer some tremendous tools and value.
Is there one particular resource that you go to or would recommend for others looking to sort of be a modern marketer and cut through?
Well, it's hard to name just one resource. I would say maybe this is a cheat. I think the resource modern marketers have to stay externally focused. A radical commitment to external focus is probably your greatest resource. Modern organizations of any size, if you're not careful, militate against sort of an outside view. And it's not just reading the Wall Street Journal or Ad Age, although those is a piece of it, but it's talking to theologians and talking to particle physicists, trying to keep up with the conversations, and because ideas happen in networks. And I would just encourage every modern marketer to open up their vision of where they're going to either draw inspiration, guidance, or even technical assistance. The lanes are getting very wide, and that's where the magic and the mystery is happening now. And I think just getting too narrow, too self-referential, too confident in your own ways of seeing. If you don't have a good dose of humility these days, of any size, even Clorox size and beyond, I think you're making a grave mistake in terms of the health and future momentum of your brands.
That's sage advice indeed. Is there one lesson that was particularly tough, was a hard-earned lesson that you've had when it comes to marketing in the last few years?
Well, many lessons, of course, have learned. We stumble a lot, which may be a good lesson. Is like, rejection is learning. But in terms of tough lessons learned, never lose the mystery in brand building. What I mean by that, Clorox has had an exceptional history of incredible rational brand building, and we're proud of it, and we need that. We have incredible data infusion and analytics that would be the envy of most companies. If you lose, though, the sense that these are human questions we're trying to answer on a human scale, and you have a culture that doesn't respect that, it's just a lot of work to bring it back. We're so rational. We talk the P&L and the balance sheet and the forecast, which is all part of winning in the marketplace. But when we talk about answering human questions and addressing human needs, the culture can reject it if you lose it. So bringing it back, that this balance between mystery and science, if you lose it, it's tough to get it back. And we're making progress, but I think we're learning we have a lot of way to travel yet.
So I'm going to attempt to wrap up some of the things that I heard, and it's so interesting because you ended where you started. A lot of folks come to me and say, hey, Drew, what's the best channel to go into? And I always say that's the wrong question to start with. We spent a lot of time in the beginning of this conversation about talking about influencer marketing, but before we could get into that, Eric brought back to the question of who are we, what are we trying to do, what's the brand experience, why does it exist, talking about purpose and so forth. So you can't get to influencer marketing if you don't understand those principles. Now, if we talk about influencer marketing, a couple things came up. One is you certainly find people that know and love your product and your category. That's a great place to start. But don't be over focused on necessarily trying to achieve mass. That's not necessarily what influencer marketing can do very well. It can fit in a particular area, whether you're selling Brita or Kingsford or Burt's Bees. You obviously want different ones. We talked a lot about the balance between data and the art form. You talked about things like programmatic and how excited you were of being able to automated media buy based on the weather. It's a phenomenon, and I'm excited to hear that smaller brands will be able to take advantage of that. And then we sort of ended in a great spot, which is the humility required to constantly drive yourself to question what you're doing, to have the curiosity to challenge yourself, and to not just become all about the data, because at the end of the day, we're talking about humans who often make irrational decisions. And when you really boil it down to what they're saying, when they say, why did I buy that? They'll say, I don't know, I just liked it better. So with that, I will thank my guest, Eric Reynolds, CMO of Clorox. Thank you so much for being on Renegade Thinkers Unite.
Drew, my pleasure. I enjoyed it.
This has been Renegade Thinkers Unite, but it doesn't end there. Just go to renegadethinkersunite.com for more and subscribe to the show. That way, you'll never miss an episode. We'll talk with you next time on Renegade Thinkers Unite.